Now, this next story is one that I want to keep following. You remember last week we spoke with New South Wales Labor MP Mark Buttigieg about his campaign to change laws around medical gas installation. And I couldn't believe it when he told us this, but in New South Wales you do not need any licence or special training to install or to maintain medical gas in hospitals. And early this week it was revealed too by my colleague Chris O'Keefe at 9 that at least half of the gas installers working at Nepean Hospital had no trade qualifications or licences, not a one. Now, it's a loophole with a gas mix-up that's already had fatal consequences. In 2016, one baby died at Bankstown Lidcombe Hospital after being given nitrous oxide or happy gas instead of oxygen. And another baby was left with traumatic brain damage, lifelong injuries. Well, Mark has a bill that he thinks will prevent mistakes like that happening again. It's just passed the upper house of the New South Wales Parliament in the last hour or so, and he's on the line for us now. Mark, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Deborah.
Important issue, this one, and at least it's passed the upper house. Is that rare that a private member's bill gets that far?
Look, it is somewhat rare in the sense, Deborah, that the government had indicated in the debate, which we had just now, that they would oppose the bill and laid out all sorts of reasons as to why, but then proceeded to not divide, in other words, not take it to a vote, which was I took it to be quasi-support for the bill. So it seems as though I'm optimistic they may have had a change of heart. That's yet to be seen, of course, because now it will go to the lower house, the Legislative Assembly, where the government has the numbers and could kick it into the gutter, obviously, if they wanted to. But it's given me some degree of optimism. I'll now engage with the government to see what we can do to get that bill passed tomorrow. And
have they spoken to you, any government members, or did they speak in the upper house when the bill was before it?
Yes, the government representative, the Parliamentary Secretary, Natalie Ward, spoke for the government and made the point that they agreed with the sentiment of the bill, but criticised some of the content of the bill. But then, of course, when they decided to support it by not voting for it, clearly there was some movement there. Minister Anderson, as late as a couple of hours ago, has reached out to me wanting to discuss the bill. Again, my message to the government is this. Look, this is a tailor-made, non-partisan issue which we should be able to get on a unity ticket together and legislate on behalf of those families, the Khan family, the Ghanem family, and all families in New South Wales, and anyone, for that matter, going in to a hospital for a procedure which would be administered that sort of gas. Again, people expect us to rise above politics with these things. There's certain things we can't rise above in terms of ideological difference. This is not one of them. This is about the health and safety of New South Wales residents, so I'm saying let's do it tomorrow. All
right, well, let's hear if Kevin Anderson, the Minister for Better Regulation, does actually move in that regard. And I know that the government itself, when we spoke last week too, the government, they'd said that they would amend existing legislation, which you had said did not go far enough, but I'm now hearing that they'll actually introduce their own legislation on this issue now.
Well, it's a bit of a moving feast, Deborah. At first they said that they would do it by regulation at the end of the year, and then it went from regulation and legislation at the end of the year. Then we got notice yesterday that they'd given notice they would introduce their own legislation into the Parliament tomorrow. That's now not happening tomorrow, and now they've supported our bill going through the upper house. So it seems as though there may be some light at the end of the tunnel, but again, my message to the government is, if you think we can improve my bill, by all means, let's sit down and go through it, because it's not good enough to wait 2 months. It's not good enough to wait till the 1st of November, which is what the government representative stated in her debate today. That's how long it would take. It's not good enough. The legislation has been very thoroughly researched. It brings us up to the same standard as Victoria and Queensland, and this can be done tomorrow, and we can get a result for those families tomorrow. Let's do it tomorrow. That's what we're here.
And you're right. Tomorrow, it'll be in the lower house tomorrow. So you're spot on.
Correct.
It can all happen tomorrow if you can get that support. And I can't believe, Mark, that this story that Chris O'Keefe broke with support from you and information from you, that you do not need a licence or special training to install medical gas, but B, that half of the gas installers working at Nepean Hospital, the new hospital, don't have any trade qualifications or licences. What's going on?
No. So as of only earlier this week, we were made aware with documentary evidence that of the 14 installers of medical gas at the new $1 billion Nepean Hospital, only 7 had a trade, not even qualified to do medical gas because there is no qualification. But we're talking about 6 plumbers and an electrician, right? The other 7 literally walking off the street with no trade qualification at all. And that was emblematic of what's wrong with this. Not only do we have the tragedies for the families originating back in 2016 and all that passage of time, but right here, right now, to think that this thing could happen again is just beyond belief. And I do want to thank Chris O'Keefe for his work on this. It's very good investigative journalism, and he's helped us brought it to a head. So I want to give a shout out to Chris.
Absolutely, he's worked hard on this. Tracy's emailed in as well saying, why isn't there, this problem should be in the hospitals, that it should be mandatory that every shift the gas is checked?
Yes, well, look, the Safe Work did launch an investigation into Bankstown Hospital's role in this particular incident, and they subsequently dropped the investigation on the basis that Bankstown Hospital would comply with an enforceable undertaking. And I understand some of the details of that enforceable undertaking include those sorts of things. But the problem is, Deborah, at its root cause, this is not an issue about a particular hospital or a particular work site.
It's systemic.
It's systemic. So you solve the problem at its source by licensing and qualifying people. You don't hear of these sorts of catastrophic accidents, for example, happening to that degree in the electrical industry or the water plumbing industry because it's regulated and licensed and people have pride in their trade and obviously are accountable via licensing systems. So we want to solve the problem at its source by fixing it up with proper training and licensing.
Yeah, you get it right, and you get it right from the instant you install it. Mark, we'll keep in touch and we'll see how you go in the lower house with this bill tomorrow. Thanks so much for joining us.
Really appreciate your interest, Deborah. Thank you.
Mark Buttigieg there, the New South Wales Labor MP, and it just makes sense. You get it right. You don't risk any more lives with this.